Hello everybody, I'm Novi and welcome back to the channel. In our everyday lives, the thing we search for most is comfort. Something, someone, or some place to just go and turn your brain off for a while. Maybe it's your favorite video game that you can't put down, or your favorite movie that you've seen a million times over. Or maybe, if you're a wrestling fan like pretty much everyone watching this is, it's your favorite promotion's weekly TV episodes. I know, wrestling TV relaxing, who knew it could be such a thing? To me though, there's one show every week that is, and that's of course AEW Collision, which is what we're going to be diving into today when we talk about what makes Collision such a comforting watch every single week. Before we get into all that though, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for new live streams every Wednesday and a new video just like this every Saturday, talkin' graps. I think one of the first things we have to do is establish a timeline for this feeling, and I'd simply say, it starts at the beginning. Whether or not you think CM Punk's Collision or today's version is better is a debate to be had. No matter where you stand though, I think we can all agree that both versions of Collision have had some really stinky stuff on them. What's remained the same throughout all that though, is that they've always tried to be comforting. They've never deviated from being the place where people can go to watch simple but engaging wrestling TV. One of the ways they've earned that comforting feeling is the show's presentation style, a thing about Collision that's remained very consistent throughout its run. It's always been a grittier, more grounded show with stories based on the wrestling more often than not. When Collision was first getting started, the idea that it would just be Dynamite on Saturdays was a major concern for a lot of people. But those presentation elements I mentioned before have always been a relatively stark contrast to the way Dynamite presents itself. And that's been great for making it feel like its own show, which in turn helped dismiss a lot of those early concerns that people had. By doing that, they've been able to turn a lot of people into colliders. It's a unique audience that enjoys a certain type of wrestling that only Collision offers. And because only Collision offers what they want, they're watching the show every single week. This gives AEW a substantial and especially very loyal fan base of colliders. That paid off for them too when Collision aired at 12 p.m. the other week, even later than they had advertised, and the show actually managed to go up in ratings compared to the week before. Sure, I can admit that the total viewership number for Collision isn't the highest ever, but they've built such a devoted fan base that they stayed up till nearly 2 a.m. to watch the show, and that's a big deal. But to go back to the way Collision differentiates itself from Dynamite, I'd say another way they do that is by staying so consistent quality-wise. 2023 AEW Dynamite was a horror show, nightmare fuel for the avid fleet that still does give me nightmares. It was such a segment by segment show where one would be great, then the next would be meh, then we'd get a bad, then we'd get another bad, and so on, you get the point. But even with the occasional great segment, after every show you were just left feeling bad. I made a whole video on this channel talking about that feeling too, because I was so fed up with feeling it. Watching my promotion of choice every Wednesday and just feeling so numb fucking sucked. But the one thing that kept me going, and a lot of other fans as well, was AEW Collision. No matter how awful a Dynamite was or how I was left feeling after a Wednesday, Saturday's Collision always gave me a calmingly grounded wrestling show that I could just sit back and enjoy. That's not to say it was without its own issues, especially those early shows, I can definitely admit that. But every week it was consistent, and that's something worthwhile to me. Dynamite has always been the A show, but Collision was so much better most weeks that it became the thing AEW fans just held on to. Even when the boat was getting rocky and we would have to sit through some pretty awful segments on Dynamite, it would be calm waters on Saturday, and I think that's the best way to put it. Sure, it wasn't usually the most newsworthy show like Dynamite often was, but that's because it wasn't trying to be. It's the show for sickos, as they say, and it knows that. It doesn't pretend to be grander than it is. It just does what it does well, every week, and I think there's a lot of merit in that. I'm over here talking about it like it's a person, so I might be losing my mind a little bit, but I'm sure you guys get the point. A great, very recent example of this that I want to give is actually Dynamite from last week. It was a messy show to say the least, and it made me feel a lot of the things that I remember feeling in 2023. It's the first time that that's happened all year, and I hated it, just like I did then. But just like in 2023, as I've mentioned a lot throughout this video, Collision came on and just gave me a wrestling show that made me feel good. And here's the thing too, I actually think Collision is the best that it's ever been right now. That's because of a reason I said before. It knows what it is and it does it really well. Quality matches all across the card, they're bread and butter. They're doing that weekly. And just to add on that, the variety in all the matches makes it even better. Last week, we saw 5 very different matches all across the show, from showcase to technical to trios. We weren't getting the same flavor every time the bell rang. We got new taste each time. Everyone gets the chance to show off their unique style, which gives every kind of wrestling fan something to sink their teeth into. But continuing on, Collision has great, very grounded promos that are completely rooted in pro wrestling. That was a specific difference to Dynamite that I especially noticed during the MJF Devil storyline. That whole thing was a lot more gimmicky, and I just didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed Collision promos back then. Mostly because on Collision, people would stick to what happened between the ropes, and less anything else. And when there were angles like the Devil stuff, they happened between the ropes, and that just gives you a better reaction because you get to hear the fans going up for it, and you just get to invest in it a little more. And finally, a fun thing they started doing not that long ago, Collision has been the place for international talents to come over and show their stuff. Last week especially, we saw Stardom's Azumi debut, and she did so well, she got a great match out of Timeless Tony, an unfortunately rare occurrence these days. Not just that, not to bore you with ratings talk or anything like that, but Azumi did raise Collision's viewership number for her match. People tuned in for her match and then left afterwards, proving that she was the draw for that segment. For an international talent, that's a huge deal, and shows doing stuff like that works. It's a novel thing that only Collision does, and I don't think we can dismiss this. It's really cool. Seeing names like Yuji Nagata and Jun Akiyama, legends of the game, come in for one-off matches with Dragon just makes it feel that much more special. Not to mention, people like Azumi and not so recently Hechisero are just very good wrestlers, so it makes the matches on the show even better. It's things like that and all else I've mentioned in this video that shows that Collision has established a formula for its shows every week. And that formula is why so many people like myself are so invested in the show. It's a completely different thing from anything else you'll see on wrestling TV. And that's exactly what I always wanted it to be. Uniquely special, calmingly grounded, and just fun as hell to watch. Collision is an AEW success story. You can talk about ratings all you want, but I want to focus on why it's such a good wrestling show, and I hope it continues on for many Saturdays to come. Because after long weeks of the usual life stressors, all I want to do is just sit back and enjoy some high quality graps. Collision provides me with that every single week, so much so I'd call it Comfort Wrestling TV. With that being said, that's going to do it for today's video, everybody. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you love or even what you don't about Collision. Thank you all so much for watching as always. It's been Novi. Much love. Peace.